justice, roots hold me close, wings set me free, Spirit of life, come to me, come to me. I have to say, I was surprised to find it in our hymn book. I had decided to use Mary Oliver's poem, Wild Geese, as the reading before the sermon this morning. I knew it might be familiar to many of you, perhaps not novel or impressive in any way, yet I felt there would be value in repetition. In Unitarian Universalism, we don't often repeat sacred texts the way other religious traditions do, and yet the reciting of Scripture can have a comforting and healing quality to it. As Unitarians, the repeating of a 1993 Mary Oliver poem might be about as close as we get. But even so, I didn't realize that it's right here in our hymn book. It's number 490 to be exact. It surprised me to see it there because of its first few lines. You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Really? Could it be true? When I hear those words, and for that matter, when I hear the equally familiar hymn, Spirit of Life, a profound relaxation comes over me. Writing this sermon at 4:30 in the morning because I could not sleep, given the stage of life that I'm going through, I found myself breathing a deep and healing sigh. You do not have to be good. Isn't that at odds with our usual way of doing things? Our desire to get things right, to live up to our principles, to strive to fix what is broken. What on earth is "you do not have to be good" doing in our hymn book? Is it some kind of mistake? Well, of course it's not a mistake. The way I see it, the inclusion of Mary Oliver's Wild Geese reflects the strength of our universalist roots, which promised salvation to all people, warts and all. I won't dwell on that troublesome word salvation very long, because for many of us it conjures up fundamentalist stories of life after death. But salvation can also be seen as deliverance from pain and suffering, or being brought back to life from a deadness of the spirit, a healing of the soul. Our Universalist teachers believed that every person is inherently worthy of the experience of deep healing and peace. That is to say, you do not have to be good. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination, calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over announcing your place in the family of things. I was reminded of that place again when I returned to walk recently in the Don Valley. As I've shared with you before, it's a contemplative and healing place for me. I return to it regularly because pattern can be an important part of spiritual practice. And also, I believe that physical landscapes can be read as wisdom texts, as can our physical bodies. On this particular day, I was nursing a hurt. The exact circumstances don't matter, and the bruise was the kind of thing we all experience as people in this world. A bruise, I would add, that may have arisen in large part from my own clumsiness. Like Carolyn McDade, on the day she sat down, exhausted at the piano, deeply discouraged by the frustrations of her social justice work, I returned to the valley, saying, "Spirit of life, come unto me." Within minutes, I found myself embraced again by the fragrant beauty of the fall leaves and the soothing sound of crickets and birds. And the thought came to me suddenly, when I remember I am part of the whole, I am healed. It was an announcement of my place in the family of things. Not coincidentally, when I heard it, the bruise I was walking with felt less painful. It seemed more possible to return again in love, to reconnect and heal the wound that had occurred. I have to admit I didn't do anything particularly special for that healing to take place. I only arrived again at a place of openness and receiving, where my awareness of wholeness could transcend my sense of personal separateness. Some people see that receiving stance as a form of prayer, and some also understand the wholeness, which is expressed in our tradition as the interdependent web of all existence, as a contemporary definition of God. The Jewish non-dual teacher J. Michelson writes, "When I remember who I am, and by this he means part of the wholeness that is God, I find it easy to love almost everything, even those who have broken my heart. When my mind becomes distracted, I forget, and it feels impossible to love, least of all myself." He goes on, "So much of my own spiritual work recently has been to submit to love always, to love myself unconditionally, and, as the Hasidim say, to extend that light as much as possible, to the legal papers as much as the poetry, the shopping as much as the dance. I fail more than I succeed," says J. Michelson, "but I try to love the failure." When we become aware of our connection with a greater wholeness than ourselves, it's possible to see that virtually everything might be useful in our quest for healing and growth. In his book, Healing Words, physician and author Larry Dossey passes along the following story that a reader shared with him. "When I was a small child, my sister and I used to play a game we invented called Perfect Leaf. We would go into the backyard and search diligently for a leaf on any tree or shrub that was perfect. The first person to find one was the winner. This may sound unbelievable, but the game could go on for hours, particularly in late summer or fall. By then, almost all of the leaves were imperfect, chewed by insects, shriveled on the edges, marred in endless ways. Perfect Leaf was more than a game. It taught us a lesson that we didn't know we were learning at the time, that beauty and ugliness, perfection and imperfection can coexist, not only in the same leaf, but probably in ourselves as well." This reminds me of a passage from Parker Palmer's book, A Hidden Wholeness, The Journey Toward an Undivided Life, where he writes, "Wholeness does not mean perfection. It means embracing brokenness as an integral part of life. Knowing this gives me hope that the human wholeness, mine, yours, ours, need not be a utopian dream if we can use devastation as the seedbed for new life." In 2012, almost 20 years after writing Wild Geese, Mary Oliver used the devastating diagnosis of lung cancer as the seedbed of a poem called The Fourth Sign of the Zodiac. It goes like this. Why should I have been surprised? Hunters walk the forest without a sound. The hunter strapped to his rifle, the fox on his feet of silk, the serpent on his empire of muscles, all move in a stillness, hungry, careful, intent, just as the cancer entered the forest of my body without a sound. And here is part 3 of that very same poem. Why not get started immediately? I mean, belonging to it. There is so much to admire, to weep over, and to write music or poems about. Bless the feet that take you to and fro. Bless the eyes and the listening ears. Bless the tongue, the marvel of taste. Bless touching. You could live 100 years. It's happened or not. I am speaking from the fortunate platform of many years, none of which I think I ever wasted. Do you need a prod? Do you need a little darkness to get you going? Mary Oliver was treated for her cancer and she recovered with a clean bill of health. Yet in this world, of course, there is no shortage of darkness. I'd be lying to you if I said it was easy to be comfortable with it. That is, to escape being bruised or broken as we scrape up against the jagged edges of this world. This year, the theme for United Nations Sunday at Unitarian Universalist congregations around the world is Arm in Arm, Interfaith Action to Disarm Our Planet. The message being shared across the UU movement this month is that disarmament and healing of global violence depends upon the affirmation of wholeness. With the threat of nuclear war once again in our collective awareness, we seek the wholeness of collective action and the wisdom of compassionate leadership. As the UUA wrote in its message for this morning, all people are interconnected and dependent upon one another. An attack on the citizens of one country harms all other countries. Additionally, ceasing armed violence protects the environment on which we all depend. It is critical to remember that all issues are interdependent, but also that to solve them, all people must recognize our common humanity and band together. We must rely on each other. Aware of the urgency of cooperation between nations for peace and for the well-being of all, today this congregation is proud to support the work of the UUNO in its healing work around the world. Through our acts of generosity and through our solidarity in justice, we affirm our place within the interdependent web. And each day, often in the smallest and humblest of ways, our connection with the whole can be affirmed, and that is to the good of our bodies, our minds, our souls, and our spirits. Here are just a few ways that I've observed connection in the family of things just within the past few days. We might make a compromise to support the greater good in our family or in our congregation. We might honor our ancestors at family reunions or school anniversaries. We might marvel at the mystery of synchronicity, the meaningful coincidences that link us in unexpected ways. All of these and so many more announce our place in the family of things and connect us to the wholeness that can be healing. They are available to each of us every day. Circling back again now to the healing found in poetry, I'd like to leave you with a song by Leonard Cohen, one of the prophetic voices of our time. This is a slightly abridged version of his song, Come Healing. Oh, gather up the brokenness and bring it to me now. The fragrance of those promises you never dared to vow. The splinters that you carry, the cross you left behind. Come, healing of the body, come, healing of the mind. And let the heavens hear it, the penitential hymn. Come, healing of the spirit, come, healing of the limb. Behold the gates of mercy in arbitrary space, none of us deserving the cruelty or the grace. O solitude of longing, where love has been confined, come, healing of the body, come, healing of the mind. Oh, see the darkness yielding that tore the light apart. Come, healing of the reason, come, healing of the heart. Oh, longing of the branches to lift the little bud. Oh, longing of the arteries to purify the blood. And let the heavens hear it, the penitential hymn. Come, healing of the spirit, come, healing of the limb. And let the heavens hear it, the penitential hymn. Come, healing of the spirit, come, healing of the limb. In the words of the poet, we are but limbs on the tree of life, branches connected to so many others, both strong and fragile, so frequently broken, and yet held within a healing wholeness that links us arm in arm for this very brief time that we are here. May we listen each day for the voices that call to us, announcing our place in the family of things. May we remember we are part of the wholeness, and may we be healed. Amen.